Dr. Jeff talks love. Dr. Jeff talks life. Answers your questions, cuts through the strife. Sex and intimacy, real and true. Evidence-based, made just for you.
Hello, welcome to Dr. Jeff Talks about sex and intimacy, where we delve into what matters in terms of love and relationships. I'm your host, Dr. Jeff Albaugh. Today, you are joining us for episode 66. Wow, that's crazy. Beyond Performance, How Sensate Focus Rebuilds Connection and Pleasure. Who doesn't want more of that? Connection and pleasure. So whether you're watching live or whether you're listening to the recording later, I just want to take a moment to thank you. You have taken time out of your amazing life, and every moment of your life matters. And it is a true blessing and a gift to me that you've taken time to learn and to be a part of this podcast. So thanks for being here. I sincerely thank you because you are exactly why we are here. We are connected across so many platforms now. We're on Facebook, we're on YouTube, LinkedIn, all the different platforms. A quick favor, if you are a Facebook person, please follow us. The more people who follow us, the more we can do on Facebook, and it's always helpful. We love our followers, so thank you. Visit the website. On the website, you can look at all the old episodes. There are 65 of them, and you can pull up the calendar and see what's coming up next. We have had the most awesome guests, so please go there, watch past episodes, see what's coming up, join us live or on the recordings. So go to the website. Also, we're where you are. You can take us with you. We're on Spotify, we're on iHeartRadio, Amazon Music. When you are working out, listen to Dr. Jeff Talks about sex and intimacy. Learn more about sex and intimacy. When you're on your road trip with the one you love, listen to Dr. Jeff Talks about sex and intimacy. Take us with you. We're always happy to be there. As always, I'd like to take a moment just to welcome everyone. Whatever your sexual orientation, whatever your gender identity, whatever your relationship style, I just want you to know how welcome you are here. This space was created for you, so welcome. What's the mission of the podcast? It's really easy. It's to empower and enlighten you with the evidence-based scientific information you need to improve your sexual health and to deepen your loving relationships so you can live your one miraculous, wholehearted life more fully. Today we are exploring a concept that is both simple and really, truly, profoundly transformative. Sensate Focus. In a world where sex is often driven by performance, we got to perform, expectations, outcomes, many people find themselves feeling disconnected from their bodies, disconnected from their partners, and even pleasure itself. What if we could take the pressure off? Get rid of the pressure. What if intimacy wasn't about achieving something, but it was about experiencing something? Sensate Focus is a cornerstone of sex therapy that invites us to slow down and to tune in and to rediscover touch as a pathway to connection rather than performance. Whether you're navigating erectile dysfunction issues, pain with sex, differences in desire, or just feeling stuck in a routine, this approach can help rebuild intimacy from the ground up. I am really pleased to have my guest join me today, Nicholas A. Maio-Aether, an experienced therapist, sexuality professional who will guide us through how Sensate Focus works, why it's so effective, and how individuals and couples can begin incorporating it into their lives. Nicholas trains other providers on how to do this, so it's really cool, and I'm so glad he was here to join us and teach us some of the wonderful evidence-based information about Sensate Focus. This is a conversation about presence, about curiosity, and reclaiming intimacy, one mindful touch at a time. So, My guest, Nicholas A. Maio-Aether, is a highly trained therapist and sexuality professional with a multidisciplinary background in mental health, behavioral science, and human sexuality. He holds advanced degrees in marriage and family therapy and psychology and is credentialed as a certified sexuality counselor, board certified behavior analyst, and an international behavior analyst. Nicholas brings a unique integrative perspective to his work, combining evidence-based behavioral approaches with deep understanding of relational dynamics and sexual health. He works with individuals and couples navigating a wide range of concerns, including sexual dysfunction, desire discrepancies, anxiety, and intimacy challenges. Nicholas is known for his thoughtful, compassionate, and practical approach. He helps clients move away from performance-based patterns towards more authentic, embodied experiences of connection and pleasure. His work emphasizes mindfulness, communication, and the therapeutic power of slowing down, making him an ideal guide for today's conversation on Sensate Focus. So I am so excited to have joining me my guest, Nicholas. Welcome.
Hello there. Thank you so much for having me.
I'm so glad you're here. And I can't wait to talk about this topic that we both care so much about and find to be so helpful and therapeutic for so many people. So let's dive right in. Okay, so Sensate Focus. The reason we're doing this is because listeners have said, what is it? What's it all about? And can you explain it more? So that's really what we're here to do right now. It was basically developed by Masters and Johnson originally in the 1960s. It goes all the way back to the 1960s. The goal is to become more mindful of the physical sensations of touch while letting go of all those preconceived notions, all those things of we got to do it this way, those expectations and judgments about intimate touch, and just really focusing on the touch itself and the sensations, using all of your sensations to experience it. It's about touching, about being touched without pressure to perform. And it avoids judgment, evaluation, while being fully present, totally into the game. So that's a bit about what Sensate Focus is. Nicholas, what do you think about that so far?
I really appreciate this slide. And I also really liked the way that you introduced this. Talking about curiosity and mindfulness are so important and pertinent here. And something that really stands out to me is the second bullet here, where it says the goal is to become more mindful. Because really, at the end of the day, we're looking to let go of goals and to value this experience. And the way to value it, the only goal you should have is to be present, is to be mindful, is to be in the experience so that you can value it. And I really do appreciate, again, the language in here about the preconceived expectations. When we look at Masters and Johnson, I think of the three classically defined problem behaviors that they came up with being expectation setting, which is also like goals, right? Pleasure seeking. And then what naturally comes out of those two is performing or spectatoring, and opposite sides of the same coin there. And so I just really appreciate the way that you built that up. I thought that was really cool.
And we're goal driven as a society. It's like, you got to have goals, you got to have, all this stuff. And it's like, this is really about being in the moment and setting aside goals, because being fully present means you got to put that goal aside. You can't be on the sidelines judging, and you can't be thinking of, looking forward, judging. You're in this moment right now.
Absolutely. At the end of the day, something that I tell a lot of my clients, and I also, when I'm training clinicians, I kind of impose that they might want to ask this question as well. The question is, am I safe? If I'm safe, then what I'm feeling is probably just discomfort or weird or different. And as long as I'm safe, then I have room to slow down and explore it. I don't need to fall back on my fight, flight, fawn, or freeze response. And And as you said, like slowing down is so important to just be like, okay, this thing is happening. And also there's all these other things happening. My body is having thousands, maybe millions of conversations with my brain at the same time because all of my nerves are active and working. And so if I notice this, then I can also notice all of this. I don't need to hyper fixate into something. And so I appreciate this slide. I think it's a beautiful way to get this started.
Yeah. Who doesn't want to be right in that moment when your body's doing all those things and experiencing all those things? So I totally agree. All right. So going on. So what does it involve? What is it all about? What do you think, Nicholas?
Well, I think something that really stands out here is the word planned on this slide. It is about making sure oftentimes couples have not been having intimacy. If they've been attempting it, it's resulted in punishment, bad outcomes over and over again in some way, shape, or form, oftentimes tied to those goals that were being set. And because intimacy is oftentimes quote unquote, botched or not there, starting to plan it and making sure that it's happening, that alone is a step in the right direction. And it might feel weird for people to plan, but are you safe? So if it feels a little weird, let's keep moving forward because you value each other and you want to have that connected experience. Maybe it's tied to values of love or other things. At the end of the day, I tell my clients, regardless of why you're connecting, try and value adventure and curiosity because those are going to keep you in the sex game. There's always something new, something new going on. So if you do plan that time out, some people say, well, then that's boring. It's not spontaneous. I ask, well, first off, how much spontaneous sex are you already having? And second, it can be incredibly exciting. Every time you're naked with another person is a chance to have, gosh only knows how many experiences. And they can go millions of different directions. You might even not end up with orgasm at all. You might end up just cuddling and eating Oreos in bed and feeling naughty about it and feeling good about the fact that you feel naughty. And that's okay.
Yes. Love it. Love it. And I think that's so true. And really the plan just means that you're going to make it happen, that it's on your radar. And you can still make it fun and spontaneous. You can be like, tonight at some point, it's going to happen, so you can do it a lot of different ways, but plans means that you've made it a priority in your life. It's not going to fall off of your things that are really important for you to do and to happen. And sometimes we just think, oh, that'll happen. And I don't know about you, but many of my clients are like, yeah, and it usually has to happen. You get into bed and then you're tired and you fall asleep. And I'm like, well, first off, it doesn't have to happen when you go to bed or when you go to sleep. It doesn't have to happen when you lay down. So you can make it fun and curious and adventurous in so many different ways, even though you've committed to making it happen. That's the plan part of it. A certain amount of times a week or a certain, whatever, that your intention is, I want this to happen.
Absolutely. And then as we move into what happens during that planned time of the week, right? Something that I think is important, and I do want to just kind of very much clarify about this slide, is that oftentimes our clients are already so focused on sensual pleasure that we actually remove that focus at first. We look at a new baseline of what can sex be. This is why you've got to value adventure and curiosity. You're going down a different road. These different exercises that are built into the Sensate process, they start out weird. Admittedly, they're clinical and they feel odd to do, but that's part of it. That's part of it, because then you're learning to make room for that discomfort and actually to bond over it and to find your own way to make something beautiful and valuable of this weird clinical set of exercises you've been given. It's a beautiful thing when they come in and they say, this was weird. I don't know how much I liked it for the first session. And I'm like, you guys do it more than once? Did you keep going? Yeah, we did it all the way through. We did it every time that we planned for that week. Well, then that to me is huge. That means that you were willing to make room for discomforts. You were willing to go down a road together. You had an adventure. And I often follow up that question with, was this sex? And usually I get no. But interestingly, before we get to the quote end of the sensate process, before there is any penetration occurring, when we're doing more outer course, they start telling me that that's sex at some point, because they start realizing whatever we're doing that we call sex, that we're having a great time for, and we're having fun, and this is our intimate time. It can be sex, even if it does only end in us eating Oreos, right? And why would I say only? Even if it ends in us eating Oreos.
Yeah. That's a good way to end.
Right? So that idea of stopping chasing the pleasure, because again, earlier I said our nerves are always talking to us. Right? This is undeniable. You can't debate this. This is basic neurology, that we have transmitters constantly firing. And if what we're doing is we're thinking about, am I doing this right? Is this going to be good for them? How much are they enjoying this? Are we going to, one of my freaking craziest things that I hear people say is they're trying to come at the same time. Right? Am I lining it up right? Am I lining it up right? I don't know about you. I can't have a good conversation with my body if I'm having an anxiety conversation in my head. And so I've got to learn to let go of seeking pleasure. I've got to learn to find value and pleasure in whatever is already present.
Yeah, totally. And two, when we don't focus on the genitals or intercourse or penetration or whatever, and especially when we begin with the kissing and touching and using all your senses together, you're like, I never knew like my inner thigh just felt like that, or behind my ear, that whatever it is that you discover, it's a wonderful process of discovery, and it takes the pressure off, I think, is a really big thing too, but we'll talk more about that. So let's talk a little bit about those phases and go through a little bit of that so people understand, because we keep talking about as you work through it and as you get to it. And I have actually this slide and the next one, that's the modified phases and the originals. So let's go through those.
All right. So initially, as I said, it is going to be a little weird. It's clinical. There's non-sexual touching. One partner is laying, one partner's kneeling next to them. So it oftentimes does not look like what people might picture when they think of sex. They are not allowed, at least at first, to, within the context of the exercises, try to stimulate the genitals or the nipples. They are also, throughout the process, until the clinician says we're ready for it, they are not to have any attempts at intercourse. So this gives them a chance to build up that motivation for some fun time and to start experiencing different ways that things can be fun. And so they learn to focus on physical sensations rather than their goals of arousal or orgasm. And over the course of a few different shaped exercises, they start to look less clinical and more like just bed adventures, we could say, different positions. And they start to move into more sexual touching. And something, again, that I try and emphasize with my clients is any touching that you're doing during this can be sexual touching. If you are valuing love, any of this can be love making. And, just getting in there and starting to touch more and more parts of the body. We start to reintroduce the genitals as an area that can be explored. But even when they get introduced, they are not introduced as explore for pleasure. It's explore and see what happens, like see what sensations occur. I've had clients who are struggling with erectile difficulties. And one of the things that I tell them is like, see what fun adventures you can have while you're soft, right? Like the pressure to stay hard can go away if you realize we can have a whole lot of fun soft.
Mhm.
So again, we continue to not emphasize getting penetration. We don't emphasize orgasm by any means. And eventually, when the clients are ready, when the pressure is gone, when they are having a conversation with their body and not their heads, when their bodies are then conversing with each other and their minds are able to focus purely on the connection, at that point, we can reintegrate. That's the word. The actual intercourse components, and that is when we might start looking at what just looks like more traditional intercourse.
Yeah, and again, we're always emphasizing that's not where we're headed. That's not the goal. It's not a destination. It's a journey. Always kind of emphasizing that. I really like when this science came out about a little bit of the modified stages in 2017, which just kind of looked again at the non-genital touching. That's where we start exploring things, not focusing on genitals, no breasts, nothing like that, but really just focusing on all those things and even using other senses. Touch is a really big deal, but taste. Maybe those Oreos could be spread different places across the body, not genitals or breasts, but the taste or the smells, using some aromatherapy mixed in with what you're doing. You can use all your senses to experience the parts of the body besides the breasts and genitals in the beginning. And then with this particular group of phases, they add the lotions and the lubricants. And then they move away from, you were talking about, a lot of times it's focused on one person focusing on the other, and then they switch to the other one focus on, and then now they can do some mutual touching as they move through the phases. And then sensual intercourse or penetration can be there, cannot be there. We're not headed for that phase, and this is the best phase, and we're always headed for that. It's just, it may or may not happen. Let it go where it's going to go. If it ends up an amazing cuddle and or becomes about oral sex instead of penetration, or becomes about whatever, it's about being more so than doing and heading somewhere.
Absolutely. I appreciate that you have this slide too, because I was trained directly by Linda Weiner. She was my supervisor.
Cool.
And whenever I think about kind of sensate, like just how powerful it can be, I'm going to go back to a very old media representation, a show called Ally McBeal back in the day.
Yeah.
But there was a character who she refused to be sexual with anybody, but she was in a relationship with a guy, and she would get him so aroused simply by touching his knee. And so he would tell her she gave great knee. And I loved that, that idea that any part of your body can be erotic, that any part of your body can be something that you might find fascinating and fun. And this, one of the things that is important beyond just mutual touching, is the idea that these are done multiple times a week with multiple rounds per time. You're looking at 3 rounds per time too. So there's quite a bit of experiencing. There's also a lot of debriefing. There's a lot of communicating. There's a lot of sharing. This is what I really enjoyed. I didn't really like this part so much. I'm not going to freak out if you do it, but and that's not really my jam. And then, oh no, I didn't like that. And something that is brought into it, and I want to make sure listeners and viewers are aware, when I say, make room for discomfort as long as you're safe, I don't mean make room for pain. I don't mean make room for something that is truly bad. Now, if it's a chronic pain, we might need to make room for it. Chronic pain ain't going anywhere. But if it's a pain being caused by the action, okay, do something to feel a little bit better. And we have the ability, as the person who's being touched, before we move into mutual touching, and even then, we have the ability to do what is called hand writing. And so, if the partner's hand is on an area that we don't like, or they're touching us in a way we don't like, if we put our hand on top of their hand, they know to stop. and let us move it to another place. And then they're not to come back to the area that they've been moved from until they've had a chance to debrief and find out why they were moved from it in the first place. So there's a chance to say, I did not feel safe when you touched me here. Like this didn't, or this type of touch made me feel more than just uncomfortable. Like this was really uncomfortable. Things like that. And I see you've also thrown a question in the chat.
Oh yeah, we have those. We can do those at the end, but
Okay.
Let's continue to work through the slides, and we'll get to those in just a minute. But I wanted you to see them as well as they came up. But yes, they are there. So I think you bring up a really great point. We've talked about this before in the podcast in different episodes, that safety and consent are ongoing things. They're not stagnant. So it's always checking in, making sure everybody still feels safe and that we still have, where everybody's consenting to what's going on, because those are the foundation and underlying everything, that everybody feels safe and everybody's consenting to whatever we're doing. And same thing with Sensate Focus. They're dynamic. They're ongoing. They're not, oh, we had it at the beginning, everybody felt safe, and we have consent, anything goes. As you navigate through it, safety and consent have to be continue to be navigated.
Absolutely.
And so, great. And so, why do it? What are the benefits? You know, why do we both think it's a great thing to do with clients and things like that?
We've got a really good list here. I mean, I'm not going to argue any of these things. So, you know, it definitely helps couples rediscover pleasure. It also helps them redefine pleasure.
Yes.
You know, something I think is really neat is when we use that good enough sex model and couples start realizing, like, well, I don't need to orgasm. I had a really good time for an hour with my partner naked, and that was pleasure. An orgasm, that moment of isn't what I'm getting all of my pleasure from. It definitely alleviates performance anxiety because you don't have to perform. Like, what am I performing? There's not a goal. There's not an outcome that we need to get toward. And I don't need to spectator. I don't need to watch to make sure that I'm doing a good job performing. When we look at the idea of, and it's very much tied to it, that everyone is responsible for their own pleasure and orgasms. I love this because it takes it off of the partner. Something that I tell people too is, again, as we are redefining things, you're responsible for your own orgasms. That does not mean that you are responsible for making sure that they occur. It's just not anyone else's job. So again, we can let go of that I need to come, or I shouldn't even try having sex. It's like, is the only reason that you're having sex for that moment of release, or is there more to it? Learn to lean into everything else.
Definitely.
And you know, as you said earlier, this is about communication and connection. And the debriefing process helps enhance the communication a lot, because you start to learn why your body is responding in certain ways, and you can convey that to your partner. And then your partner understands why your body is responding in certain ways. Your partner also learns through things like handwriting in the moment. This is in the moment communication. This is something we never had before. And we can take handwriting, and even after Sensate Focus, this can be a thing we always have as a couple. So if I ever make you truly uncomfortable, if I ever make you feel unsafe, just put your hand on mine.
It's interesting. Even sometimes when I have people who are really trepidatious, they're willing to do the physical exam because I have to do genital exams and things. So some of them, I'll say, I'm going to give you the Q-tip to touch, and I'll put my hand there, and you guide it. So we do handwriting even sometimes when we do when I do physical exams. If I have someone who's very anxious about it, they're willing to do it, but they're anxious about it, I let them take control of it by doing that handwriting, by letting, hand over hand, let's check places, let's test places, but you have control. You still have control as the person receiving, or in this case, in the case of an exam, getting the exam, you have control over it. But in this case, receiving the pleasure, receiving the sensation, you have some control with handwriting.
Absolutely. And again, it also gets them communicating about sex in the first place, because you are planning and you get into the habit of making sure intimate experiences are put at the forefront. Maybe not the forefront of every week, but that they're kept high on the list. And you get into the habit of making sure that that's occurring. What started out as weird, oh, we have to plan our sex, becomes a skill of making sure that you never fall back into not having sex.
Yeah.
Which again strengthens that intimacy, right? You have that we're going to be checking in with each other. We're going to be connected with each other at least a couple times a week. But also, I don't know about you, but when I'm having good sex with a partner, I feel connected to them, even when we're not in the middle of the sex. Whether it's a combination of behavioral responding to like, ooh, I've just gotten a lot of reinforcement from this person, or a combination of hormones, endorphins. I'm not entirely sure, but I do know that feeling of connectedness, I'm going to go kind of outside of my behavior and analytics scope and say that feeling of connectedness, it's present. And that's really huge. When I've talked with couples, something that also stands out is when they're not having a lot of intimacy, arguments seem to occur more and more intensely. When there is a lot of intimacy, if an argument's occurring, it tends to occur at a lower magnitude, or if it's high magnitude, it's over quick. And they move into intimacy a lot of the time. I think that people have a little bit more lenience, a little bit more willingness, a little bit more empathy when they feel connected to their partner.
Yeah.
And of course, you can address. I'm so sorry.
No, absolutely. And then, with the final thing, like you were getting to, is it can also address things like erectile dysfunction, because you don't need an erection to do all these things except the penetration. And so it takes all that off. And like you said, we usually will take that literally off the table so that there is no concern over it, because that's not an option for now. And then too, like premature ejaculation or pain with sex, learning to like have some intercourse type sex between the thighs rather than up in the vagina where it's hurting your partner or whatever's happening. So we can deal with all those different sexual issues within the context of the Sensate Focus. And of course, we personalize it. Most of us will personalize it for you as you're working through it as well. So there's a lot of really great things about it for sure. But it also can often cause a few challenges. I find probably the biggest thing, I always tell people, you're going to commit to doing this planned love play, but I need you to undercommit. And if you do more than we said, more sessions than we said, I'm always happy about that, but don't overcommit. Because if you don't do the sessions, it feels like, wow, we said we could do this. We thought it was very doable, and we're not doing that. And that hurts. So I find my couples get upset when they say, oh, we can do that 3 or 4 times a week for sure. And then they don't. and so I think that's one thing. And then 2, when you're not, why aren't you? Why are you avoiding the exercise? What's going on? And then, really identifying what are the barriers and problems to getting this done. Sometimes it's just the kids, trying to get them to bed and doing whatever. What are the things that are stopping you from achieving the goal? But those are some of the challenges I've found with my clients with Sensate Focus. How about you?
Yes, all of the above. Also, I work with a lot of mixed neurotype couples where one partner is neurotypical and the other partner is autistic. And so a huge area that we've worked on is sensory concerns. And needing sex to look different than traditional intercourse, and finding ways to have wonderful sex. The other barrier that stands out, though, is actually it's more of a systemic thing, and I do want to bring it up. I have had multiple clients where they've come to me and they've been receiving what they are calling Sensate Focus, and I guess a therapist or a clinician or somebody else called it Sensate Focus and told them to do it. And what they're doing is not Sensate Focus. They are saying things like, I'm doing, my focus on temperature, pressure, and texture. So they got that part right, but then they're like, so that I can give her an orgasm. I'm like, wait, nope, that's not Sensate Focus. And sometimes these individuals, I think it's very easy to trust a clinician to be an expert. But something I do think is always important is to ask if they're going to try a new modality with you, something like Sensate Focus, what is your training in that? And at least from some of the people that I've taken on, where I've gone back and been like, what were you doing with them, to their previous clinicians with an authorization of release? Finding out, well, I was doing Sensate Focus. I'm not actually a sex therapist or really involved in sex much, but I picked up Human Sexuality 2nd edition and I read the 6 pages on Sensate Focus. And I'm like, oh no. I keep hearing that. Human Sexuality 2nd edition, the 6 pages on Sensate Focus. And I'm like,
that's crazy.
Trained in Sensate Focus. That I have read those pages. I have them scanned. I could not have read those and be the effective clinician that I am. So I think it's really, really important to go through and get the training. And so if you are an individual who is being proposed to do Sensate Focus, or if you want to do Sensate Focus because you heard about from this show and you're like, oh my gosh, let's do this, make sure whoever is overseeing your Sensate Focus has been properly trained in it, because that is an area that can become an issue. It is supposed to move you through phases and towards something. And I've taken on couples who've been doing quote unquote Sensate Focus every week for years. And they're basically just doing the same thing they were at the start. And they're like, I don't know why it's not working. And I'm like, well, it's because you're on exercise 2 out of 12.
For sure. Oh my gosh. Yeah. And so to that point too, and I think there's nothing like working with a counselor or a therapist on this for sure. But of course, anyone can do it. You don't have to do it as part of therapy, but I think it's helpful to have a professional who really is trained in it to guide you through it and to work with them. And certainly they should tailor and modify it to you and to your partner and what exactly is going on with you guys and how you will move through it. I've had people spend much longer in certain phases or shorter in certain phases. There's no definitive you have to do this exact time or whatever. It should be tailored to the needs of those people. And that's usually done by a therapist or a counselor. But can you try some things on your own? Of course. Of course you can do some of that as well.
Can I real quickly give a little bit of advice to anybody?
Yeah, absolutely. I would love that.
So if you were going to try this on your own, what I would recommend, outside of specific exercises that you might need to go to a clinician for, but at the end of the day, ask yourself this question: am I safe? And if you are safe, then whatever you are experiencing, try and notice something about temperature. Try and notice something about pressure. Oftentimes, if we're touching ourselves with different levels of pressure, we might feel different temperature. Also, texture. Try and notice something about texture. Temperature, pressure, and texture. And as you change the pressure of touches, usually the texture and or the temperature might change. Different parts of the body might feel cold at some times, warm in others. So just getting into your body and noticing. If you don't feel safe, making sure that your partner knows that and that you share why. And as long as you feel safe and you're not hurting, maybe it's weird, maybe it feels different, maybe it's not going a direction you expected or hoped it would go, see if you can make room for that. See if you can allow that to be and still talk to your body. Stop talking to your head so much. You got to get out of your head and into your body so that you can have good sex.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. I love that. And you know, that voice in our head that's incessant, it's always going on. So I think getting into your body and that is one way to quiet that voice in your head somewhat, is to connect to the sensations, the feelings in terms of that pressure, temperature. That's great.
And it's also it's a mindful approach. So it's not shoving that voice out, right? You allow that voice to exist. You just notice what else is there. And that voice naturally calms and quiets a wee bit. It's still going to talk, but because you're not focused on it, you don't hear it as loudly.
Yes.
You're having the other conversations.
Yes, it's just quieting it a bit so that other things can have room for other things to exist along with it. So absolutely. Excellent. That's pretty much the formal presentation that we had. So I do have a couple questions and some things, but gosh, I think that was some really great information on Sensate Focus, and I think people have a much better understanding of it thanks to you and our presentation. So I'm excited about that. So the first question is, I've always thought of sex as leading towards intercourse or orgasm. How do I mentally shift away from that goal-oriented mindset without feeling like something's missing? Great question.
Okay. I would say the first thing that I would really look at here is the why, right? All behavior serves a function. Why are you having sex? Is it because you really, really like orgasms? Is that the only reason? Because if so, you can always have sex with yourself in your bed or your bathroom. You can look at a tablet and have an orgasm. So why? Why are you choosing to do it with another person? There has to be more than the orgasm. And so it starts to be, it's a framework, a relational frame, a way of looking at it different, is to start to look at what other functions has it been serving me, or am I hoping it will serve? And oftentimes, even if those are pleasure-based, what values fed those goals? Why do you care about pleasing your partner? Oh, you love them. Okay. Or you care about just having experiences. Well, guess what? That's what this is. You don't have to have that release at the end for it to be an experience. And sometimes you can have an orgasm and the sex actually wasn't that good. So it's a really weird thing to always think it's got to lead towards this, but it is a natural and normal thing for us to think that, because we are fed that from everything around us. The media tells us this. We tell each other this.
Yes.
But it's not what it has to be. And people who have great sex are people who are not trying to have great sex.
Yeah, and I think to your point too, and what we've said earlier, listener too, that you've kind of heard us say, and I know this came on early, probably before we said some of that, but is that we take it off the table. So it's not even an option. And that's how you shift away from it, because it's not where you're headed, because you're not going there. So I think that's the beauty of it. It removes it. And then that allows the space for focusing on all the other stuff we talked about earlier. So I think because this came earlier, I bet it was before we talked about all those different things. But that's really the beauty of Sensate Focus, is you don't have to worry about the shift, because you are shifted. It's off the table. It's
a beautifully behavioral protocol. Yeah. And because the wonderful thing about behaviorism is you don't have to know how it works or why it works. It works. And exactly. So you just go through the process and the shaping does occur.
Just do it. Just do it. But it's pretty cool. And people discover some really neat things. And you can journal about it, and of course have exchanges with your partner about it. But there's a lot to it. The other question was, can Sensate Focus still work if there's been a long period without intimacy or even some resentment in the relationship? I find I use this most often with clients who are like, we don't even know where to start. We haven't been sexual in so long. Sensate Focus is perfect for that couple, because it's like, we don't know how to start. Well, we have a methodic way you're going to start and a methodic way you're going to work through it. It's perfect for that situation, don't you think?
Yeah, it removes the pressure of how. Now, here's how. It's written out for you, and it's scheduled twice this week. Exactly. No pressure for initiation now. I think another piece of this question though was resentment, and I want to look at that for a moment.
Mm-hmm.
Again, like the resentment often comes from I'm not getting my orgasms, or on the other side, we're not having sex at all. And so we have to find out where these things are coming from. And sometimes the we're not having sex at all is because one partner wasn't having orgasms and was blaming the other partner. So this partner stopped initiating, right? So if we can get in there and we can say, hey, guess what? All of this stuff is going away.
Yes.
All of this stuff is going away. Why did you first like choose to come to us? Why did you choose to be in a relationship? What made you feel attracted to each other at first? And we get kind of some of that in there. And we say, okay, don't you want to focus more on that? Like, isn't that what you want to be focused on? So let's start focusing on that. Let's make that the value set. And then our body is going to do the actual conversing.
And two, sometimes it's almost like an exchange. If you give me this, I give you that. That's what sex becomes, right? And Sensate Focus kind of takes that away. It's not that. It's about experiencing it through the moment as the giver or the getter, and then sometimes mutual. But it kind of removes the interchange of, well, I'll give you sex if you do this and all that. It's not that kind of a model. It goes into how can we discover pleasure through this touch, and it removes a lot of the things that are barriers to that. But I do think, like you said, exploring that resentment, super important to see where's that coming from, and then this will give you a place to start over, to begin, which is,
right,
I think, really great.
And I think it ties back around to something that you said in the barriers. You have to adhere. Right? If you want that resentment to go away, right. And you haven't been initiating sex, and then you're trying to find ways to get out of Sensate Focus, we're going to have issues. So we do have to make sure that we're adhering. The same thing is true of, somebody who's not been getting an orgasm. They shouldn't be complaining that this isn't resulting in orgasms to their partner. We should be working on reinforcing and building up everything that our partner did that was value aligned, that that is part of this experience. I love the word experiencing when we're talking about Sensate Focus. Just again, maybe you find out your partner, they're not into trying to penetrate you right now, but they give really great knee.
I love it. I love it. Gosh, so many great things. We could talk all night about Sensate Focus because it's got so many little nuances and things to it, but it really is helpful, and I think people have a much better understanding. I am going to go to my closing centering exercise, and I will be back to you in just a minute. But as we always do at this point in the podcast, I'd like to take a minute as we wrap up today's episode. I'd like to invite you into a brief moment of reflection and, as you've heard over and over, connection with yourself this time, with you. If you're able, find a comfortable position, sitting or lying, whatever's comfortable. Gently allow your eyes to soften or close, whatever's more comfortable for you. Take a slow, steady breath in through your nose and a long, easy breath out through your mouth. Let's do that again. Breathing in through your nose and gently out through your mouth. Continue that breathing pattern. And now bring your attention to your body. Not to change anything, but simply to notice. Notice where your body is supported at this moment. The weight of you in the chair or beneath you, whatever you're on. Gently bring your awareness to your hands. You might lightly rest one hand in the other, or place a hand somewhere on your body, your arm, your chest, your leg. What are your hands doing And where are they comfortable right now? Without judgment or expectation, just notice the sensation of touch. Wherever your hand is it warm or cool? Is it soft or firm? Is it subtle or is it more defined? There's nothing you need to do here. No goal to reach. Just feel what your hand is feeling. Just noticing. If your mind wanders, that's okay. Gently bring it back to feeling of that contact. What is that feeling of that contact, whatever it is? The simple experience of touch. With a partner, this is where intimacy begins. Not in performance, but in presence. Not in performance, but in being fully present in this miraculous moment. Take one more slow breath in and gently exhale out. And when you're ready, gently open your eyes and carry forward this intention of being present in the moment with your partner when you're together again, being fully present with them in that moment. What greater gift could you give someone than be fully present? Well, Vic, can you tell us what's going to happen next week? I'm excited about next week's episode. What's it going to be about on Dr. Jeff Talks About Sex and Intimacy?
Sex changes as bodies change. Erections can become less predictable. Penetration can become painful, limited, or no longer desirable. Desire often shifts beyond the narrow definitions of sex portrayed in media, with penetration and intercourse as the final goal. In this episode, Dr. Sarah Sohn explores what intimacy can look like when penetration is no longer the central focus. She discusses pleasure through sensation, collaboration, and multiple erogenous pathways, as well as the role of kink as a structured and consensual way to have amazing sexual experiences. This episode is for anyone who desires sex that feels delicious in the body they are actually in. Join us on April 14th at 7 p.m. Central Time to learn more.
Vic, you always kill me with those ticklers. They are so funny, and you do such a great job putting those together. They're so entertaining. So thank you. But I'm super excited because it does build on the subject we've been talking about for sure. And Sarah, who's a physical therapist, will really take us through this. And I think it's going to be a really interesting topic. But gosh, we really unpacked Sensate Focus tonight. And I am so excited we did that because people have been asking a lot about it. So thank you. You're such a great expert in this area, trained by one of our evidence-based people. And so I really appreciate it. So any final messages for our listeners as we close out the session this evening?
Thank you, everybody who is listening or watching, because you're taking a chance already on something different. And that is what we're asking in the Sensate process. Mm-hmm. At the end of the day, if you are safe and the person you're with is someone you trust, maybe take a risk, have some fun, find that adventure.
I think what you say is so true. And here's the part we don't always talk about. It's a vulnerable act. Brene Brown says it's one of the most vulnerable acts to ask for sex, right? Mm-hmm. We already feel vulnerable. And when somebody's exploring our body or doing whatever they're doing, whether it's genital or breasts or without any of it, it's a vulnerable moment. But vulnerability is the only path to love and belonging and intimacy. So take that chance. And if you feel safe enough to do that, explore, be curious, and enjoy. Thank you for joining us, and goodbye. Thank you so much, Nicholas. You were awesome.
Dr. Jeff talks about sex